Hey guys, it's Jet888 here. It is November 14th. I'm going to discuss a couple things. First, I wanted to talk about this BRICS thing that's people have known about for a while, but I don't know how public it is. It's between Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And isn't that funny? Because it looks like Brazil is acting like a Pac-Man there. So that's one thing I want to talk about real quickly is BRICS. And in an article about BRICS, it says, about turn sans trust will be foolish. So the word sans is without. And look, there's, looks like China and India shaking hands. And again, they're talking about BRICS, but I wanted to look at this word sans, and this is how I found what I'm going to show you next. And here at sans.org, it says Pen Test Hackfest Summit and Training 2022, and it's going on today, November 14th through November 21st in Arlington, Virginia. And this article says the best defense is a good offense. And it looks like it's a hackable, like a hack fest. And isn't that interesting? Because remember when that creep Yuval Noah Harari said humans are now hackable animals? He's the author of Sapiens and 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. Yuval Noah Harari says that basically that we have a technology to create heaven or hell. And this seems to be Klaus Schwab's little wonder boy for the World Economic Forum, which is WEF, which you flip it around and look at the anagram and it's few, like what's going on now. There's fewer people in this world. So back to this article, I'm just going to read what this says. This is the Russian news agency RBC, Red Blood Cell, if you look at that, RBC, Red Blood Cell, reported that the BRICS Business Council supported a unified payment system for the member countries. The system suggested by the Russian Direct Investment Fund, RDIF, where else have we seen that, RDIF, could facilitate settlements through a single BRICS cryptocurrency. George Carlin said, it's a big club and you and I ain't in it. Remember that? So at this summit that they've got going on, at the sans.org, cybersecurity training events, Pen Test Hackfest. And here they show you, it says, the best defense is a good offense. This says, learn, connect, and share with some of the most advanced cybersecurity operators in the world at this year's Pen Test Hackfest Summit. This one-of-a-kind summit brings together all aspects of offensive operations. And the definition of offense, the act of causing anger, resentment, displeasure, or affront. The state of being offended, a violation or infraction of a moral or social code, a transgression or sin. So they are going to basically create a moral code infraction or a transgression or sin. So regarding their offensive operations, covering the latest research in penetration, testing, exploit writing, red teaming, adversary emulation, and more. Adversary emulation. So there's the word adversary, looking down number 2, the devil, Satan, often used with the, so the opponent, an enemy. They act they're an unfriendly opponent or an antagonist. Here's some adversary emulation plans. Plans outline the behavior of persistent threat groups mapped to attack. That's interesting because that word attack almost looks like AT&T. They are used by adversary emulation teams to test an organization's network security. Wow, how many times have we had that happen where they're like the tabletop exercises? Remember Event 201, a pandemic exercise to illustrate preparedness efforts by the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, along with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And that was in October of 2019, and all of a sudden all hell broke loose right after that. 2 months later, all of a sudden, this little tabletop exercise that they gave all of a sudden came to light. And that went off on October 18th, 2019. So anyhow, this pen test Hackfest, they're going to, look at this, Hackfest Fun Fest. Isn't that interesting how they are going to encourage offensive operations? So now going to this BRICS thing where we've got Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are all teaming up. Now last year it was the 13th BRICS Summit, 2021 BRICS Summit. Isn't it interesting? September 9th, that's 9/9. And just looking at the gematria, the Jewish, now they're calling it Hebrew, Noah 99. And that's also the Bible God is 99. And when I looked at this same headline about turn sans trust, so without trust will be foolish. And I saw this under the word SANS Cyber Defense Initiative 2022. Now this is coming December 12th. This is what I was mentioning about the 13th of December. Cyber Defense Initiative 2022. Learn to combat the world's latest cyber threats with up-to-the-minute training from real-world practitioners. Connect with other professionals in the cyber community at one of our biggest events of 2022. Join us in Washington, D.C., or live online for SANS Cyber Defense Initiative 2022. So it goes from the 12th through the 17th. And this is in Washington, December 12th. So Washington, D.C. are virtual net wars, and look how they have that little reflection pool because what's up is down. Net wars. And isn't that interesting how the word net wars isn't in their gematria database yet? And again, notice how they use the word Hebrew now, Hebrew instead of the word Jewish that they usually have used. So Hebrew, but anyhow, it's white rabbit. Net wars is white rabbit. It's also time traveler, but you know, I've noticed too, they've changed this. Look how they've changed, see at the searches, so they've changed the whole Jewish gematria Hebrew search. They've changed it all. They've reset it. We're going to put net wars in the database. There we go. Yep, they're in there now. Looking at the anagram of net wars, it's T answer. And T is 20 in both simple gematria. So T is also a DNA. But this is just my interpretation of it. So the a DNA answer at the net wars being put off by Washington, D.C. after Yuval Harari said humans are not hackable animals. Because in this Pen Test Hackfest Summit, they talk a lot about the purple team, purple teaming, red and blue equals purple. There's your purple team. Cedric Owens here is the offensive security engineer for purple team. Thanks, Cedric. Meryl Vernon here is the senior security engineer for purple team. She's the lead. And looking at the anagram of purple team, it could be perpetual M. Who knows what the M is? We'll look at that later. But you got the pre-mill tup, or the tup pre-mill. And you know when you look at the word tup, so tup is a male sheep ram. So there you got your ram, the head of a falling hammer-like mechanism. Remember that silver hammer? Like a steam hammer or a pile driver. They're saying it's chiefly British, a male sheep, a ram, a heavy metal body. Heavy metal body. Remember the Beatles, Maxwell's silver hammer? The Beatles. Let's see, 1969, the album Abbey Road, written by Paul McCartney, credited to Lenin. The song is about a student named Maxwell Edison, who commits murders with a hammer. Interesting, Edison. And here's their album cover. You got the black-white theme going. Looks also like piano keys, ebony, ivory type of thing going on. And look at this. It was recorded on 9/11. That's interesting. And the Abbey Road also was 3 minutes and 27 seconds long. And it's the Apple label, like Adam and Eve apple. And it's interesting how cannibalistic is also 327, as is 327 adrenochrome. So the other day I was looking at the word Beatles also. Beatles. Isn't that interesting how Beatles, the anagram is El Beast, like the beast? And Beatles in Hebrew, which used to be in Jewish gematria, is Masonic. In simple gematria, the number is 64. It's 384 is English gematria and 64 is simple. 64 is also HTTP, as in all the links that we have on the internet, the interweb, the Internet of Things, and spell as in spell casting, and thelema as in Aleister Crowley, the Satanist. The 38464 is also Israel and Musk. He always is popping up. Looking at the word Beatles, the anagrams, it's beatless without the other S. Cell beat, which when I look to the right, cell beat, and beatless would be like flatline, because you have here, you have a sine wave that's light or frequency, but when you take that away, you're beatless or you're flatlining. So skipping back to that Maxwell silver hammer, the student named, the song was about the student named Maxwell Edison who commits murders with a hammer. And when you look at the word Maxwell Edison, the anagram, it's X owl media lens, and the X, according to Elon Musk, the X means the unknown variable, because he tried to name his kid this, XAA12, which is weird, that he had with his girlfriend named Grimes. But anyhow, X is the unknown variable. So when we look at X owl media lens, X in Hebrew gematria equals 300, which can be the fallen one or the biblical mark, among others. So looking at the archive.org page, it's interesting because there's a couple things I found. So this was one, I'll leave the link for this, Mapping BRICS Media, and they talk a lot about the telecommunications. And they talk a lot about the health and mass communication. So I'll leave this because it's all interrelated. And one interesting thing I noted in here, they were talking about how Russia is going to have an underground sea cable that will lead with, fiber optics that will lead to Florida. And this was an interesting talk too that I saw. It was research and innovation in the BRICS, Ford Foundation, and here they talk about the science, technology, and global elite universities. And this guy here is doing a lot of talking. I'll leave you the link for this talk as well. Here's September 21st to 27th, and Brazil has a lot to do with this. They're talking about the Brazilian Academy of Sciences, BAS, and they bring up the word research and innovation quite a bit in higher education. But this is a really interesting discussion that kind of opened up some other doors for me. And this guy right here, I'm assuming he's from India from the way he sounds. And when he was discussing the BRICS indicators and talking about the most important factors, the middle income countries, factors relating to innovation and research, relatively high human development. These were just little notes I took. Research and technology, innovation, policy frameworks. And I've noticed he kept saying the word frameworks, EMF frameworks. And frameworks, when I looked at the anagram, is we for Marx. And I noticed too that Klaus Schwab uses the word frameworks a lot. This guy also used the word technopox, which I thought was really interesting. Technopox. They didn't have it in their database, but when you look at the Jewish gematria, which now they're calling Hebrew gematria, it's 616. It's ritual sacrifice. Yep, 616, ritual sacrifice. This guy also mentioned the tripartite pact, which he wasn't referring to Berlin in Germany, but now he's referring to, he mentioned, I'll skip back, he said technopox, an instrument to enhance collaboration between government, universities, and Brazil, and he called that the tripartite pact. And if anyone remembers Pearl Harbor, this is an axis is formed, the tripartite pact, Pearl Harbor. Remember Pearl Harbor? I've seen, in fact, at the archive.org, you can see the actual court records, where they admitted, the Washington, D.C. admitted to having known about the attack that was going to happen on Pearl Harbor, and they didn't stop it. So that's your government for you. Pearl Harbor, and this says, though Germany and Italy were not explicitly bound by the tripartite pact to declare war on the United States on December 11th, and isn't that interesting, December 11th, because we've got the SAN Cyber Defense Initiative coming up on December 12th through the 17th, but basically it talks about no separate peace agreement, but up here, the tripartite pact, this is according to Britannica, definition, significance, whatever, September 20th, tripartite pact agreement concluded by Germany, Italy, and Japan on September 27, 1940, 1 year after the start of World War II. It created a defense alliance between the countries and was largely intended to deter the United States from entering the conflict. But if you listen to this talk here between Brazil, this is all the BRICS stuff. Oh, and here's their logo for 100. And they also notice have the red and blue. So red and blue is also purple. And the organizer for this is 2016, is Academy of Brazil. The Sciences, I guess, Brazil Science Academies. And look at that, Ford Foundation supports that. This Ford Foundation. Here's some of their supporters. In this document, the Mapping BRICS Media, it talks about Fortune 500 ranking the number of transnational corporations based in the BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Now they've added South Africa. Countries has grown from 27 in 2005 to 96 in 2012, indicating a rapid internationalization of, sorry about that, I broke it up, but here's where I found this, archive.org. Mapping BRICS Media, and I'll send you this link. China's Huawei, there's that telecommunications equipment firm, is the largest holder of international patents, while Brazil's Petrobras is the fourth largest oil company in the world with an annual turnover of 90 billion. I'm skipping back down here. They're talking about overseas revenues, and by 2030, according to the World Bank, 2/3 of global savings and investments will be in developing countries, including the BRICS in that category, compared with 1/5 in 2000, the World Bank. And they mentioned the Global Communication Order. So when you look at that, GCO, or you flip those letters around, it's cog, like cog in the wheel. So here's your Internet of Things. By the end of 2020, it's estimated there will be as many as 1 trillion things connected to the Internet. I wonder what they mean by that, by things. Okay, just having a little bit of fun. The Pen Test Hackfest can be PT, which could be Production Technology, Snake Chef Test. Here's another one, Snake Theft Spect. And this is interesting because Spect is single photon emission computed tomography here. Single photon emissions computed tomography is a nuclear medicine tomographic imaging technique using gamma rays. Gamma rays. I know the Homeland Security uses gamma rays. And look at this too. A SPECT scan is a type of nuclear imaging test, which means it uses radioactive substance, which I wonder what they put in those jabs, and a special camera to create 3D pictures, while imaging tests such as X-rays can show what the structures inside your body looks like. I wonder if they can tell if you've submitted to the needle crafting. I'm not going to keep going too deep into this, but during the SPECT scan, radioactive tracer inserted through IV. That could be any kind of needle craft. How do you like that radiation symbol there on that IV bag? Tracer circulates through the body, and the gamma camera rotates around the body, and cameras create a 3D image of organs and tissue. So gamma cameras. Well, this is a little interesting article that I found on IB Times that I won't talk about. It was on May 26th. All right. There's so much information regarding gamma cameras, and I've seen airplane pilots who own. Let's see, he was an engineer, and he was commissioned by Homeland Security to make a portable gamma ray camera scanner, which they use. But I won't go into that either. All right. Well, we just want to wrap it up here, but that's the SPECT that I was looking at. And just thought that that was interesting. They're Pen Test Hackfest. You know, they're offensive little Hackfest. Oh yeah, also that word framework, we for marks. Yeah, here's Klaus also talking about stakeholder responsibility, stakeholder, he talked about stakeholder capitalism. There's your stakeholder concept. And he said during this World Economic Forum, stakeholder capitalism, building the future, the Davos Agenda 2021, he said, important is to walk the talk, and walking the talk means not just to talk about stakeholder capitalism, but also to establish a framework of metrics which allows everybody, whatever, he kept going. I can leave this link. So framework is we for Mark, woke farmer, we fork ram, ram. And he spoke at 1:55 into this. The company is performing according to the ESG criteria. So who are they to say what companies have to perform to what criteria? But he talks about ESG criteria, and that's environmental, social, and governance ESG criteria. A set of standards for a company's behavior used by socially conscious investors to screen potential investments. So they're making, there's your little cog in the wheel. Oh, and also Antonio Guterres, the UN's Secretary General. I think I showed his name before. Antonio Guterres, torturing aeons, or UN to reorganize. And aeon is originally meant life. So torturing life. Oh, and one more thing. I know I'm getting scattered all over the place, but the Global Communication Order, or GCO, or COG, like that is a COG. These are Deutsch connectors, by the way, that are used for 5G. Deutsch Metal Series, they're connectors. See, when I saw the word Deutsch, I always thought bank, but connectors, deutschusa.com, and Deutsch connectors also looking at the anagram concocted hunters, and also looking at the word concoct. Let's see, to invent or develop a plan, a story, especially in order to trick or deceive someone. Another anagram for long COVID is love coding. Okay, we're running out of time now. Here's some of the anagram or the gematria for long COVID, and it's avatar, graves, raise records, Christian bullseye, hidden Bible code. Those are all part of the numerology for long COVID, as is Heaven's Code, Republican, and climate change. All right, guys. Remember to read between the lines. And remember, Klaus Schwab isn't your friend. Here's in his book, The World Economic Forum, in his book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution. Look at what's on top. AI, and it's purple. Team purple. So adding just a little extra here regarding the Beatles, Abbey Road in gematria is sacrifice when you look at the English and simple gematria. And when we take Abbey Road and shorten the word road, just RD, it is Tesla and vaccine. And according to a January 2008 interview with Rolling Stones, Ringo Starr, I guess, in an interview with Ringo Starr, part of this states down below, I'll mention that later, but it says McCartney described the song as symbolic of the downfalls of life, being, and this, they're talking about Maxwell's Silver Hammer, but so the song was a symbolic of the downfalls of life, being an analogy for when something goes wrong out of the blue, as it so often does. And McCartney pressured the group to work at length on the song. All three of his bandmates were vocal in their dislike of Maxwell's Silver Hammer. In a 2008 interview, Ringo Starr remembered it as the worst session ever and the worst track we ever had to record. Now, why would they have to record? If a group didn't like something, if it was really theirs, why would they have to record that? Why didn't they scrap it? So who were they being managed by that was forcing them to sing this song? If you look in some of the backgrounds of some of their practices, they were specifically working on Maxwell's Silver Hammer. You see a lot of people in the background. Here's one shot. See the people with the ties in the background and the headsets. You see more people with ties. Now here they're walking off or just taking a break off the set because their guitar is still there, but look at all the people in the background. If this was just a band just doing their practicing, especially a long time ago, nowadays it might be different, but a long time ago, look, you've got these guys in their suits and the ties. I just think that's interesting. Here they are. Here's a photographer. Here's someone, not one of the Beatles, doing some sound check. Again, wearing a tie. And here's still more sound check people in the background. And this is something that was captured during one of their rehearsals. This is all video. I'll put the video of this YouTube link in this. But here's George Harrison's name. And look at, isn't that interesting how it has the George and then Harrison. And if you didn't know his last name was Harrison, you'd think that that T was a cross. And George Harrison, here he is. So here, he was at the White House in 1974. And look at this. looking at when he died, 29 November, that would be 11 if you added the 9 and the 2, and November is 11. You got your 111. If you want to take the 2001, there's your 1, but November 11th would be 1111. And looking at the numbers, 1111, New Age begins, which is also 666 and 111. New Age begins. And when you look at the word Maxwell Silver Hammer, the numerology for Jewish gematria is 1202, but it's the storm is upon us, and it's also 11 11 11. So that would be 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1. Isn't that weird? Anyhow, I think it's weird. And there's your 201. 1111 is also twin flame. And if you look at the Beatles, sorry, I have a cat underneath me. The Egyptian scarab beetle was a symbol of death, rebirth, great power, guide, and protection in the afterlife. Look, it's like holding up the sun too. But rebirth could also be New Age begins, if I could focus. New Age begins. So that 11, 11, 11, 11, if you lined them all up, that's also 44. If you look at it that way. And scarab is 44 also. So we have 177, 264, and 44 for scarab, which is also a beetle. So 177 is mark of, and 44 and the 264 is ray, mask, clock as in TikTok, anon as in QAnon, space as in Tesla or Elon Musk. There's Ariana, that's AI, that's an, it's a like A and then AI, RNA, and Judah, and kill as in what Maxwell Silver Hammer did. So this beetle regarding Egypt, that says the ancient Egyptians worshipped the beetle as the earthly manifestation of the sun as its birth and called it Khepri. It symbolized coming into existence. It is also associated with a long life, and in this sense it is linked to the deceased, to his capacity for regeneration. There's one anagram though, Beatles is L Beast. So when I look at the word the Beatles, Lethe Beast, I don't know how you say that, Lethe. Lethe is a river in Hades whose waters cause drinkers to forget their past. So according to Wikipedia, it's one of 5 rivers of the underworld of Hades, known as Amelis Potamus, oh, like the Potomac River, you mean, by Washington? It says Lethe flowed around the cave of Hypnos and through the underworld, where all of those who drank from it experienced complete forgetfulness. Huh. Does fluoride help do that too? Who knows? Or aluminum? So I guess when you forget everything, a new age would begin, as in their 1111, 666. Oh, well, that's can't get any clearer, like Lethe as in lethal, but death. Anyhow, the river of oblivion. I know a lot of people who are swimming in that river right now. One of the streams of Hades. I mean, they're like, they don't know what's going on right now. So, brain death maybe. Oh my gosh, so this is actually pronounced Lethe. Lethe. So the Beatles, Lethe Beast. So death beast. Beast death. So looking at Lethe Beast, here's a numerology. 336, 582, 97. The first thing we see is 4. He is risen. Alexia, like AI Alex. And the Beatles. There you go. I'm looking real quick at the 582 and 97 of both English and Simple. is Poseidon, but that's also poisoned. If you look at the anagram, poisoned. And who's screaming out for amnesty right now? Who's screaming out? Who wants amnesty? That group of people that love the needle crafting and try to push the needle crafting on people. Isn't that interesting? And the dark web. All right, we're wrapping it up. So I'm looking at Adam Bound. He's the one that has the Beatles Maxwell Silver Hammer rehearsal, January 7th, 1969. That was interesting because that's the one that shows all the people in the background during their rehearsal. So I'll share his link as well.